High reliability software, especially those in safety critical applications, needs to be written properly. And these days, most of it's in C. There's something called MISRA C that can make a big difference in this. So, Andrew, could you tell us what is MISRA C?
Yeah, hi, Bob. It's MISRA C is a set of guidelines that allow you to write C code that removes, in as much as we possibly can, the undefined and unspecified behaviors in the language, allowing you to write reliably predictable and repeatable code that is as portable as you can as well. So maintaining good quality and therefore complying with the requirements of many of the functional safety standards.
Now, why couldn't C do that itself? And, are we augmenting things that are in the compiler already, for example?
Yeah, the C language is bound by the standard itself. But the working group that maintains that have a policy, for good or for bad, of not breaking existing implementations, which means it's actually difficult for them to fix what some of us would describe as problems in the language, because some people might be relying on those for good or bad. And therefore having a separate set of guidance that fits over the top means that those people who want to use those features can still do so. Those that either are required or feel it is better to do so can then adopt guidance such as MISRA to remove those features that many of us think of as undesirable.
Now, MISRA C really isn't something like a compiler. How does it work? And how do you wind up specifying, these different changes?
So there are multiple ways of tools implementing things like MISRA C. So some compilers do implement a subset of the MISRA rules. Those are typically some of the very, very simple rules that can be analyzed at compile time very quickly without adding an overhead. Compilers pride themselves on the speed of compilation. So typically, full implementations of the MISRA guidance are come along in static analysis tools, for example, that produced by LDRA. There are other tools, obviously, and these can be run as part of your software development process at compile time as well. And many companies link the MISRA checking into the same process as their compilation, or they can be integrated into your CI/CD, for example, Git or Jenkins or any of these. So yes, you can do them as part of the compile chain, but the more fuller implementations are through standalone tools.
Okay. Now, you were talking about rules. Essentially, there's a collection of these from MISRA C. Could you give an example of one, maybe one using pointers or arrays, for example?
Yeah, we have a set of rules around pointers, and obviously the whole memory safety topic is a big subject at the moment. Where some people say that that C is a memory unsafe language, and therefore perhaps Rust would be better. But actually, MISRA has had rules right back to its early editions in the late 1990s that deal with pointers should point to the correct object. So we have a set of rules that are rule 11.1 through 11.8, I think it is, that are all about making sure that pointers point to the object they're meant to, that you don't exceed the the bounds of an array, and all these sort of things. So, you shouldn't go trampling through memory.
So if you're going to use MISRA C, do you have to use all the rules?
Yes and no. So the MISRA guidelines are categorized into three different sets. We have mandatory, which you must comply with, no exceptions. We then have required rules, which you're supposed to comply with, but we allow what are called deviations where you really need to do so. And we specify a process whereby, of how you go about deviating. You can't just say, oh, I can't be bothered. It's got to be a proper process signed off by appropriate people. And then we have advisory guidelines, and these we recommend you follow, but organizations may choose to disapply them. And again, we have a process to say how you can say, I don't want to do that one. It's a bit more than just saying I'm ignoring them. So we don't have a category of ignored. You know, you are supposed to follow them, but we have a process for changing those categories if you so desire.
Well, very good. Thank you very much, Andrew, for filling us in on what MISRA C and C++ is.